Okay, this is the weekly installment of Bierkergaard. As you see, I am wearing my obligatory temple headgear. I like wearing hats backwards sometimes, and my craft beer T-shirt. Wear what you believe. So tonight I'm going to talk about a Scottish wee heavy. Let me move the camera back a little bit. There's a reason why I have this yellow bowl here, which you may see why, or may have to explain why. So anyway, Scottish wee heavy. There we go. All right, there. Kind of see the reason why. I'll move it over a little bit. There you go. Okay, so we brewed this beer back in September. It was like September, first week of October-ish. Maybe I think first week of October now I think about it. And it's a Scottish wee heavy, which is a very, 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 if I said very enough, it's a very heavy beer. Not heavy in the way that we would typically think about like an IPA being heavy. Maybe more like a Belgian quad. And I was wondering to myself before I got on camera here, this didn't overflow like it has been doing, which I think is a really, really good sign. I think it means this beer is finally ready. Brewing it at the beginning of October, it was in the primary, then the secondary, then it was in bottles. Up until maybe this weekend, almost every bottle I opened wound up becoming a fountainhead of foam. And I think that's the beer's way of saying I'm not ready yet. You know, I still need more time. It's like an outburst. So this beer was on its best behavior this weekend. It didn't explode except for a couple times, and exploding, it didn't like explode. It just had some foam going. So it was a good weekend. I brought it up to my dad's cabin. It's an undisclosed location about 4 hours away, and a little bit less, 3.5 maybe, depending on the traffic. It could be 4 depending on the traffic too. My brother come in from Pittsburgh. He blew in on a Friday night, but he drove during Friday during the day, so he made a long weekend out of it. But it was a long drive for him. I left yesterday morning at like 7:15. Got up to the cabin a little bit after 9. It's far enough away that it's hard to get to for a weekend because I want to relax. But this is a special week, and this was kind of a memorial to my uncle, my dad's younger brother who passed. So we had already talked about getting together and enjoying the fruits of our labor here. Because when I brewed the wee heavy back in October, the first week of October, my cousin came down, and I was showing him how to brew. I said, it's pretty simple, you know, I think you'll like it. And he's really taken to it. He loves double IPAs, so he's a hophead for sure, and he is really taken to it. He's got really good equipment, he's got good bottles, he's got these 22-ounce bomber bottles. So we had brewed this beer the first week of October. I just wanted to show him how to do it. There's just some tricks of the trade, nothing real complicated. I'm not a very technical person. I'm smart, but I'm not technical. Unless I really love something, and then I will invest the necessary technical intelligence into it. I can ramp up. It's not a natural, but I can ramp up if I need to. So this Scottish wee heavy, it's kind of like a Belgian quad, but it's kind of not. And I'm not sure why it's different. Maybe a little bit more alcohol. I'm not sure. It's really, really good. I never made a beer with so much malt in my life. It was bending the plastic spoon that I have, and a beer with so little hops. So this is what's called a malt-forward beer, with a lot of malt, a decent amount of dextrose, which is additional fermentable sugars, and again, the length that this beer took just to get ready to be drank, in terms of not going overboard and foaming out. When I went up to my dad's cabin, I put the case of beer into an actual case, so each bottle was secure, and then I strapped it down like it was like a child or an infant in a car seat, and I put a seatbelt around it because I wanted to keep it from jostling, because I'm like, you know, this beer is not going to do well if it gets jostled. It's already carbonated enough, and it's going to go crazy. So I didn't put it in the cooler. Normally what I would do if I was going to travel is I would buy ice here in Colombia and then put the beer on ice, and then it could slosh around and it'd be fine because the beer's not going to get overly agitated, most beers. But this guy, I had to kind of wait until I got up to the cabin, and then I put it on ice. And then we went out and did the intention of the week, and one of the big activities is mountain biking. And I talked a couple weeks ago how, like, when we drink beer, we like to do stuff beforehand, like not just to drink beer. That's a dead end. But do something worthwhile, do something fun, do something interesting. So yesterday it could be kayaking. People do that. It could be a hike. It could be mowing the grass, whatever. For us, it's mountain biking. So yesterday we hit a local state park, and it was super, super hard. I think my brother's watch said that we had done 1,000 feet in elevation by the time we were done. Burned an incredible amount of calories. It was about 90 degrees. It wasn't quite that hot in the forest, but it was hot and a lot of bugs. And I was dying of thirst, man. Fortunately, my cousin packed some additional water. I usually have a water bottle. That was not enough. I blew through that in the first quarter of the trip. And about halfway through, I was going to have a stroke. I needed water so badly. My cousin gave me 2 of his bottled waters that he had in his backpack, and then a guy that we had kind of befriended along the way, he gave me some Gatorade, and I drank out of his Camelback too. So I was super, super dehydrated yesterday. I was hot, dying of thirst, and man, the first thing we did when we got back to the cabin is, after drinking some water, was my cousin cracked open one of his double IPAs they brewed, and it was this beautiful, dark, color amber IPA, very hopped very nicely, and man, that was just the best beer to drink at that point. Like I said, I tried to hydrate before drinking the beer, not to drink like 5 beers real quick, but drink some water first and then drink some beer. This Wee Heavy is delicious. It's about 11% ABV, so it's more like a wine for sure. It kind of tastes like a wine. This will get better over time. It's still sweet, so it can still ferment out even further. It's about 11%, like I said, at 11% alcohol, which would be a 22 proof beer for comparison purposes. It's carbonated very, very nicely. It doesn't have like a really aggressive white head on it, but it's very alive. I can see it right now. It's just churning out bubbles, and it's got a good carbonated taste to it. So I like carbonated beers. I like nitro beers too, but carbonation certainly has its place. And these are bottle fermented, which means that we don't pump CO2 into these. Every guy I brew with, we all do bottle carbonation, which means there's always going to be some residual yeast left over in your priming tank or your secondary, and then you throw some additional priming sugar in there, and the yeast comes back alive. And it's not crazy because you're not putting a ton of sugar in, but since you're capping the bottle, it traps the carbonation, the CO2 inside the bottle, and that's what carbonates a beer. And you can do forced carbonation, but I think this is exactly why you want to avoid a forced carbonation. You can put carbonation into a beer, and it's not going to fit the style of beer. Like, there's a natural symmetry between the beer itself and the carbonation it develops. And as I pointed out at the very beginning of this video, if your bottles are still crazy, if they're still volatile, you could have other problems. But one of the primary issues, I think, and this is just me speculating, I don't know this for sure, if it's overcarbonated in the way this was, I think it was just a beer's way of saying, give me time, don't force the issue, let me mature, you know? So October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. It's almost 8 months until this beer was ready. 8 months. That is crazy. That's why commercial brewers won't touch this stuff, or if they do, they will sell it for an arm and a leg. If you get a Wee Heavy, a Scottish Wee Heavy at the distributor, if you can find it, it's going to probably run you $55 a case. And I bought a Wee Heavy a couple years ago, and it was delicious. But no better than this. This is just as good. And the kit was probably 50 bucks, but a lot of labor went into this. But you know, it's not a ripoff. Home brewing does save some money, but you kind of work. You kind of work to make the difference up, because you do have to do things like the brewing and the bottling, but it's all worth it when it comes to the end of this, when we're enjoying this. So I had this up over the cabin weekend along with my cousin's double IPA, and we had some really, really good beer this weekend. But again, it was worthwhile. Like it was a reward for like 4 hours of very, very aggressive hard mountain biking, of which I was the worst out of all four of us. It was my cousin, my brother, the dude that we met on the trail that was like Gandalf, sort of. Kind of a pudgy Gandalf, but he didn't have gray hair. But he knew the trails better than we did because he lives there by a mile. And me, and I was definitely the worst out of all four. To my credit, I'm the oldest also by at least 4 years. So anyway, cheers.